Town Council special meeting for the 29th of December. It is 8 a.m. Roll call, please. Helen.
Ms. Sade.
Here.
Mr. Carlton.
Here.
Mr. Bergeron.
Here.
Ms. Owens.
Here.
Mr. Kuhn.
Here.
Ms. Giello.
Here.
Mayor Mamula.
Yes. Okay, agenda, Rick, nothing to add, I assume.
No.
We do have one legislative item this morning, gang. It is the emergency ordinance changing the effective date of the 2020 model traffic code. Tim or Helen?
No, it's me. State law requires that before any municipality's traffic laws can be applied on a state highway within that municipality, the ordinance needs to be reviewed and approved by CDOT. I think the theory behind that is to make sure that all of the basic rules of the road are consistent throughout the state. The new 2020 model traffic code, which the council adopted a couple of meetings ago, is scheduled to go into effect on January 1st. Unfortunately, although we've requested CDOT's approval of the ordinance, they haven't had time to complete that. If we don't do anything, the ordinance will go into effect on January 1st, but we will be unable to enforce any traffic laws on Highway 9 within the town. That didn't seem to be a good outcome. And so what this ordinance will do is delay the effective date until March to give CDOT time to complete its review. We've been told that they'll be able to meet that deadline, and we will just then be able to continue to operate under the old traffic laws until CDOT approves the new.
Excellent. Thank you, Tim. Any questions for Tim? If anybody in the public wishes to comment on this, there is a Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. I'll give you 30 seconds. This is an emergency ordinance, so we will be only having one vote on this. So this would be the time to comment if you have an issue with it, which I doubt anybody does. But if this doesn't go into effect, Jeffrey will be able to speed on his Vespa between 7-Eleven and the roundabout. We don't want that.
No.
I don't see. I think that additional birthday cut down on his speeding.
Tim, I don't see like the number of the ordinance. What's it?
Helen, what's the ordinance number?
Hold on just a second.
See, I told you, I'm a whole new level
40.
of maturity.
It's
40?
It's 40. Mhm.
40. Okay.
Council Bill number 40, Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Okay, seeing as how there is no public comment, I will close that. Is there a motion?
I move we pass Council Bill number 40, which is an emergency ordinance. It's titled, I move we pass Council Bill number 40, Series 2020, an emergency ordinance, and the title has been read into the record.
Nicely.
Actually, I'm sorry. Can I correct that? It's not 40 because I've got that was the original ordinance was 40. It's, I think it's 47. Sorry, Tim. I wasn't.
That's okay. Jeffrey, why don't we just have you refer to in your motion to the emergency ordinance that's in the agenda packet?
Okay. I move we pass the emergency ordinance 2020, which is in the agenda packet, ordinance delaying the effective date of the 2020 model traffic code ordinance.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Any further discussion? No, roll call.
Mr. Kuhn.
Yes.
Ms. Owens.
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron.
Yes.
Ms. Sade.
Yes.
Ms. Giello.
Yes.
Mr. Carlton.
Yes.
Mayor Mamula.
Yes. All right. Thank you all. Jeffrey, you tried. They torpedoed you, you know?
Yeah, I think that's sabotage.
All right. On to the main event, everyone. Let's talk COVID. Rick?
Before we jump into the meat of this discussion, I want to just kind of give you a brief update on where we're at with our 5-star program and see if you have any questions. We do have Julia on, and she has been taking the lead. So I believe we're at around 80 or 82 restaurants that have been certified. Probably the majority of them that we're going to get. We could see 1 or 2 trickle in, but I think we've got the majority of the restaurants that are going to do it that have been approved. We had one restaurant that was denied because they had a violation, but that one has been appealed and they have now been approved and put into the program. The county approved gyms and studios to go into 5-star, which that came out at about 3 o'clock yesterday. So those applications have been posted online and we're asking those businesses to call in. We figure there's only about 20 of them that we've identified in town, and that includes fitness centers and lodging establishments too. So in that number, that's why there's a little more there than what you could probably put your finger on thinking about them. So Julia, have we had any businesses other than our rec center? I know is getting inspected at some point this morning, so that we can expand back to the orange level, which would be 25 patrons per room versus the 10 we're currently operating under. But Julia, do we know if anybody else has gotten a hold of us and scheduled appointments?
As of this morning, we have not had any appointments set up for inspection.
Yeah. The council have any questions about anything with the 5-star that's occurred so far?
I mean, anecdotally, how's it appearing? Are people complying? Is it successful?
Well, we haven't really started our compliance monitoring yet because we've been focusing on inspections. We have approved what we call a non-compliance warning form that would be completed. And so we're going to try to have every establishment have somebody go through and check for compliance at least once a week if we can. That's our goal. Probably won't start until next week. I think we just, we got these short weeks going on, and plus we'll focus on inspecting, the gyms and studios, et cetera. So once we get through that, we'll kind of focus on compliance monitoring. But I'm not aware of any complaints that we've had.
Good.
I know the PD did. Did they cite Shannon, did we get confirmation if we cited some businesses?
Fitness businesses?
Yeah, I know there was one, I think the yoga studio that was going to get cited.
Yeah, so they were going to get cited. I haven't confirmed that has actually occurred.
They were operating without masks in there.
And more people than they were supposed to.
So.
Is it true? I thought I heard yesterday that so right now the 5-star, the people who are in the program are operating at orange, and then if we can get into orange, then they'll go into yellow.
Yes.
Okay.
It always allows
That's great.
you to go one up on
Okay.
current status, as long as right, everybody's following the rules and doing what they're supposed to do. That's the intent of the program.
And I understand. Go ahead, Carol.
Rick, if the business has an infringement, is it like one strike you're out, or how does that work with the 5-star?
Well, it's interesting that it's one strike you're out prior to the program. So if you've had a violation for any public health order violation prior to the 5-star program, prior to implementation, you're not eligible. You have to appeal to get allowed into the program. So, if this one studio did get cited, they would not be eligible until they would have to file an appeal with that committee that I believe is your committee. Julia is the one that listens to those, or you just make a recommendation, or to go straight to public health, one of those. So,
Yeah, I think it goes to the committee and we make a recommendation to public health. The other thing I'll just mention is when we move levels and hopefully move to level orange, we will be required to go back out to restaurants and re-inspect them for level orange certification, which allows them to operate under yellow. There'll be more measurements, different measurements to take and things like that. So we'll have to make sure that the business is complying to that level yellow operation then.
Oh, yeah.
Hey,
So
so
that actually would change that should change the spacing on their tables. So, yeah, which would be good.
so we've had 84 outbreaks or 84 positive tests Wednesday to Monday afternoon. What does that mean? Does that mean we're getting better, or I just can't remember how many positive we had in the past as far as on a regular basis. So are we heading in the right direction? Are we optimistic, or are we dire predictions?
So the numbers that are more impactful is the cases per 100,000. And it's gone up and down. So over the Christmas holiday, there was, we were down low, it went up high, it came back down, it kind of jumped up and down a bit. Really, now that the state has said we have to be at orange level metrics for 2 weeks before we can move into orange, public health doesn't seem to be as concerned with the up and down spikes, which they were before, because the standard was that you had to be steadily declining for 2 weeks. So that has changed. Okay. We're okay. We're not, that decline that we'd been seeing, kind of that steady decline, was erased by those spikes over the last few days. So we're kind of even with where we were, early last week. We just have to see what happens, particularly this coming weekend, because we should see spikes from the Christmas holiday in our next weekend's numbers. So that's going to be the tell.
And just to be clear, that the 84 from Wednesday to Monday, those are residents, those are locals. That doesn't include the visitors.
Correct.
Okay.
What days were the testing sites closed down?
It sounded like just Christmas.
Just Christmas.
Well, they don't test on weekends at Breck, do they?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I think so. No.
Anecdotally, do we have a feeling about the impact from the 5-star program onto our workforce? I don't know how we would have that, but do we have an idea of how many people are getting back to work? Is it having a real impact on our employees?
I mean, I can tell you anecdotally, it's I'm trying to think, it's probably getting us back to 60% of employment, 60, 65, 70 maybe percent of employment. But our approach has been, not having somewhat part-time, it's kind of spreading it out a little bit so we can get more people back to work. I'm sure everyone's doing it differently. I'm seeing quite a few of our workforce leaving town, which is very concerning.
Yeah. I'll tell you for myself, Aaron, we have our kitchen has been fairly consistent because of the to-go business we've been doing, and we have more people working than we should. I mean, if this was a normal situation with this business volume, I wouldn't have this many people working. On the floor, I probably have one more working than they would like, but a couple things with that. Number one, I want to make sure everybody is at least getting a little bit of a paycheck. And then, the minute this thing turns, that's where sort of a lot of us are seeing where a problem will be. Once this turns to orange or to yellow, we're going to need more staff than we currently have. How do you retain them right now without them, leaving? We're doing okay. I think Dick's doing okay. I haven't heard, I think everybody's happy to be partially open. I know there's other people though, they're losing a bunch. So
I mean, it's nice to have the destination you own. Hey, you know, you be in control of your own destination. But, you know, reality is, you know, we're at 25% up against max numbers. So if I hit 50, 60% of last year's sales, I'm thrilled. So, you know, we're leaving big numbers on the table, but, you know, it is what it is. And we have the opportunity to survive. And I'm like Eric, I've been able to keep my kitchen pretty whole, somewhat whole, lot more in the front of the house. So,
I mean, honestly, most of us right now are just straight up survival mode. Yeah. This is really about making rent, paying staff, paying bills, and getting to somewhere in the summer at zero. That's my goal, is to have, you know, not lose money until then. And it's a struggle. I mean, it's splitting hairs right now on, you know, what you're spending money on. And our restaurant calls are, they get a little more depressing every Monday. People are not only weary from, I'm sick and tired of not being able to go out. They're getting weary of the stress of this, and the depression of this is really pretty brutal right now. So, you know, we know that what we can do for businesses is minor. I'm glad to see that the feds are getting something done, sort of. But not everybody's going to be able to apply for the PPP. You know, everybody's got their different issues going on. So we got to sort of broad brush this thing as much as we can. And everybody listening needs to understand, you know, we're trying to satisfy the greater whole, not, you know, everybody's got their little. I've gotten a lot of texts over the last couple of days. Well, this doesn't work for me. This doesn't work for me. And I get it. I totally get it. You know, some of the bigger businesses that are paying 30 or 40 grand a month in rent, giving them $2,500 does not do anything, but it's all we can do. So anyway.
Yeah. And I echo that. You know, from my standpoint, I want to try to strike a balance where, you know, we help a lot of people that really need it. However, we try to focus on the group that really needs it, so that we don't spread all of our money so thin that what we have to help people is so small it doesn't really help them. Because obviously we have a limited amount of money to work with. And, you know, where's that balance? I'm not sure. I appreciated some of the letters we got in the packet yesterday. I thought they were insightful. They were helpful. I'm inclined to simplify it some and maybe take away the PPP requirement, because you know, after really think about it and reading the Cindy's letter particularly, that might not fit everyone's model. You know, people that don't have a lot of staff and, you know, may or may not be in a situation where they can get people back to work right away. You know, the PPP might not work for them, and we don't want to force people to take loans, you know, because that's what it is. It's a loan if you don't get it forgiven. So, you know, I'm honestly inclined to remove that requirement for an affidavit and just simplify it. Let's just try to get, you know, as substantial as possible amount of help to the people that really need it is my goal.
I think that's a good segue if we jump into this thing. And since PPP is one of the important topics that we need to address, if that's going to be, no matter where we land, is that going to be a requirement? And maybe we could settle that right now. I did want you to know that I spoke with Tim Berry yesterday, and you know, we had talked about requiring people to do an affidavit to state that they would at least look into and determine if PPP was appropriate for them. An affidavit is something that requires, you know, a notary and that. And I don't think we want to go down that road. You know, if we look at the spectrum here, I think we always want people to at least confirm with us that they will pursue other appropriate funding opportunities, right? Some work for some people, some don't. there could be a state grant out next week that, could be different. And so, it could be as simple as putting a checkbox on our electronic application that makes people check the box that says, I basically, agree to look at other funding opportunities when they arise and determine if they're appropriate, for my business or something like that,
And just leave it at that. Make it very simple, just a checkbox. How's everybody feel about that? Good. Okay. All right. So that solves that one, Rick.
Okay.
The next issue I know that some of us have talked about behind the scenes is whether we do January to November or March to November.
Hey, Eric, I want to, before we get into deciding that, first of all, I want to thank our finance department and, Brian's staff. I know Heather and Leslie and Brian, they, worked in right up until Christmas Eve, and we tried to get all this information, and it's been a moving target for us. And so what I sent you all on Thursday has been somewhat revised again as of, yesterday afternoon, because, we're trying to do this quickly. And what we tried to do after, we met yesterday morning with staff was we tried to go through and then pull out some of those businesses that are more like, the ones I were describing. I'm trying not to use the word a chain store or chain business, but they're part of an ownership group that owns multiple stores, and typically that ownership group is located outside of Breckenridge, right? So you all get a picture of those. So when we pulled those out of the equation, it changed the numbers quite a bit. So where you had, if you looked at March, November on that one I sent you, I think there were 96 total businesses that had a 40% or greater decrease. Now, when we pull those others out, it's 57. So the numbers aren't, Brian, can we put that the latest one up to share with the council that shows that Leslie had sent out yesterday afternoon?
Yes.
I just there's not as big a difference, Eric, between those dates as there was before. When you pull, surprisingly, those chain type stores did the worst, performed. They were a majority of those were the over 40%.
Well, a lot of them were closed a lot of the early summer. I mean, they didn't open till 4th of July, A lot of the retail, the skier is retail.
I think I need to be a presenter, please. Is Chris?
We can hear you.
To share my screen, I think.
Yeah, all panelists can share their screen.
Here we go. I got it. Thank you. Okay. You have to forgive me. These aren't PDF'd yet. Like Rick said, these are real time. These are real time updates. So it's still in Excel. Sorry.
So let me get rid of my thing. Okay. You see that
Sorry
comparison? What happened there?
Sorry about that.
Go back to where we were at. So
I'm just trying to make sure I have the. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to make sure I have the right one. This is not it.
Hey, so Rick, is it okay? Can you give me an example of some of these kind of a semi-chain businesses that we might be talking about, like the Patagonia store or something like that?
Yeah, I mean, Patagonia is there's Christie Sports, right? Patagonia, I believe is owned. I think Patagonia is owned by Vail.
Yeah.
Vail owns a number of retail stores in town. Vail Resorts, obviously. Yeah. Charter Sports.
Starbucks.
7-Eleven. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
all right. Okay.
30, 40,
I get you.
Brian, can we get this? What are we doing here?
This is it, Rick. This is the one that
Yeah,
was
but
updated that has the 57 and the 40
It's
plus.
super big on my screen. What's going on here? Before
I'm
I can
sharing
see.
it.
Hey, Brian, you have to get it so the whole screen's in view. Use that 100% thing at the bottom, I think, or the toggle, the plus minus toggle.
Bottom right.
Okay.
And Rick, quick question on that. If it's a franchise and it's a local owner, those still apply, right?
Yeah, so what I sent you yesterday was you could have multiple businesses that are owned by an ownership group, but as long as that ownership group is of a Summit County, I did throw Park County into that for your consideration only because we do have people, you know, and I don't want to name businesses, but I mean, they may just live in Park County, and we tend to look at those more local, right? That own, have a couple of restaurants. So, but yeah, definitely. And you know, there could be some one-offs on this where I think the intent is to get these more chain globally, nationally type establishments, but there would be a couple that they may be a sole ownership. They may have a restaurant here, but they happen to have a restaurant in one other resort location, and they happen to have their license registered mailing address in that one other resort location. And so those would have to be dealt with by an appeal, I think, because that's not your intent, probably, to exclude those people. So what are we doing here? Because this is not working for us.
Yeah, I am sorry. I don't know. As I'm seeing it on my screen, it's full. Do I need to just zoom down? Does this help?
Just zoom out, Brian.
Like
Zoom out
this?
so we can see the whole table.
I think
Is this helping?
Brian, I think it's frozen. Let's stop sharing and then reshare it. And then let's see if it fixes the problem, because we don't see any movement at all.
Measure that.
I don't know how important it is for you guys to see this data. It was just what it did was it changed, you know, that big disparity that we saw before, where we had a lot more with the businesses that would be eligible between March, November to January, November, obviously, because we're targeting the true loss. What's the true loss during COVID, right? Versus their year to date. And, you know, you can make an argument either way. For us, dollar wise, we'll spend a little more, but not that much more. I can tell you we'll have about, you know, 15 or 16 more businesses eligible under the 40% than we would if we went January to November. So,
Hey, Rick, what percentage during the, you know, these couple rounds that we've given have taken the full 5,000? Like in the first round when it was open to everybody, do you know what percentage?
Retail tends to run about $4,000 on average, and restaurants tend to run about $4,300 on average when you look at you know, what their rent or mortgage payment average payout is. I estimate that if we did if we use March through November and we did very similar to the criteria that I sent out to you, my guess is it's going to cost us $400,000 to $500,000. Keep in mind, in January we'll have about 140,000 left over from that earlier money that you had done to apply towards that. But there's a good chance that we're not going to see a huge change in January. So I think whatever you do now, I mean, you may want to say, look, if we spend $500,000 here, we're probably going to have to spend $500,000 in February and do the same thing. And so, you know, basically kind of committing to $1 million, which we think that you can absorb that. You still got that 5 or 6 million that I spoke about that, is not really earmarked. When we start looking at all the capital that we've kind of laid out over the next multiple years, et cetera. So.
And Rick, I think I would totally agree with that comment that if February only goes to 50%, we may need to help in March too. We'll have to see, but I'd say the writing on the wall is January and February. I also think we need to really monitor how FERC's money's holding out, because I think the workforce is going to be in the same boat. As Eric indicated, and I'm absolutely the same. Yeah, we've got some people back to work, but they're not making, what they're accustomed to and what their housing matches probably. So I think FERC's supportive workforce is going to need to keep going as well. And I know they're in great shape now, but how are they going to be after January? I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, and you know what? We could pull some nicotine money over to FERC again if we need to.
That'd be great.
Yeah, that would be fabulous.
But we'll know. We'll have. They're setting pretty good right now. So.
No, I know they are. Yeah.
So we don't need. But we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll let you know. So Eric, do we want to decide first which metrics we want to use, January to November or March to November?
Here's what I'd like to do, Rick. I'd like to everybody to comment on those two things, the January to November, March to November, and then comment on whether we want to just go ahead and, say January and February right off the bat also. And I know people have different ideas about the first part. I think committing to January and February will give some people a little more sense of ease as we go forward. I'd like to just say, yeah, because we're not going to be out of this until I'll be psyched if we're in orange February 1st. I just do not see, with our numbers hovering around 750 right now, that we're going to get there anytime before that. So January is going to be this, and everybody's going to struggle through January right now. So let's, Dick or Kelly, why don't you start, since we've had discussions about this January, November, March, November thing, and then say how you feel about committing to January and February.
Okay, can I start with the January and February first? Because
please.
I think that's the easier one.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to remind everyone that hopefully kids will be going back to school in person in the middle of January. And so that's another reason to believe that we will probably be right where we are, like best case scenario, we'll be right where we are starting February 1st. So I wholly support just going ahead and planning on January and February right now. As far as the January through December or March through December, I guess I don't feel, I was the one who asked last time, I didn't really understand if it's if we're looking at the year, why we were throwing out a portion of the year, but I do realize that as far as different businesses go, people use different years to calculate. And so I'm not really sure. And I know that we definitely consider this sort of the ski season or the traveling season as a portion of our year. So I don't really feel strongly. I think the most important thing is that we're considering the same date period for all of the businesses. And I know we are doing that. So I don't feel strongly either way. And I think that everybody could use the help, and I wish we could help everyone. And casting a little bit broader of a net and getting those 15 to 17 businesses sounds like a good plan to me. So I'm perfectly happy with the January to December, but I'm not, hung up on anything there.
Hey, just I'm sorry, just be clear before Aaron comments. By going from March to December, that casts a wider net or a more narrow a net of those that are
March
eligible.
to November casts a wider net.
That's okay.
Yeah, what it does, Jeffrey, is it drops people down to having worse numbers. When I calculated my numbers, between January, calendar year, January, December, when I redid the numbers just March through December, they were 11 points worse. So I was 11 points more down when I threw out January and February. So it actually would drop me to a bigger category. And I was an advocate for not doing that because my concern was it was going to take away from our ability to really help those that needed it the most. Really viewing those of us that I had a record January and a record February in 2020. So that helped me buffer losing the second half of March. So I guess I would view myself as not as in as much need as those that maybe didn't have that big a January and February and the ability to get through.
Okay.
But if Rick and all of us think we've got the money, I'm not going to, belabor that point. That would still be my preference because I think it really funnels the money to those that need it the most money to those that need it the most. But if we can afford doing the March through December numbers for 2 months, I'm fine with that. I would like to see us move the 3,500 for the 30 to 39% group. We've got them at 3,500. I think I'd love to see that at 4,000, honestly, because if that's the average that we gave for retail, I would like to hear what others think about moving that up. Move the 2,500 is probably all right for 2029, or maybe we move that to 3,000. So maybe we go 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. But that middle group is the one I feel most strongly about, because 30 to 39% down is significant. That hurts.
Just so, Dick, and that's only, when you only got 16 businesses, you're only talking $8,000 for.
Yeah, and it's just the messaging. It's just helping, trying to get there, so, so that may be an easy change. And then I am totally really in favor of committing to January and February so people can plan and budget and know that the help's coming.
Aaron?
I agree with everything that's been said so far. So moving to let me see if I can remember all this. 3,000.
January and February.
January and February, absolutely. 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. And then I agree with casting the wider net and excluding January, February.
Okay. Very
That
good.
was all, right?
Yeah, well done. Carol?
Yeah, right away, I agree with January, February. If we need numbers that level orange for 2 weeks before we move into orange, I hope we can get into orange in February, but I think we should commit to those 2 months right away. As for using the numbers, I think it makes sense to do March through November to, as much as possible, capture the COVID impacted months, and also hit more businesses. I think it's best to throw this wide net, try and get as many vulnerable businesses the money they need. But in that, Rick, I think you alluded earlier to having an appeals process, because we probably will miss some businesses that need help that should qualify. So maybe later on in the discussion, can we talk about what the appeal process would look like?
Yeah. We'll go to that next, Carol.
Okay.
Dennis?
I'm in agreement with everything that was said. I don't need to repeat it, but Dick and Carol hit it on the head. I want to make sure that we cast the broad net and that people can figure and budget for January through February to March.
Jeffrey?
Yeah, I won't belabor the subject, but I agree with the January, February, and starting the metrics in March. But and I'll just remind us all and remind anyone who's watching, we're just trying to prioritize. I mean, there's just a lot of difficult decisions here, and we're just trying to do the most good with what monies we have to spend. And it's not a bottomless pocketbook of cash. So we have to just kind of figure out how we can do the most good. And so please be patient and know that the best interest of the town is at heart. And it's not an easy decision, any of this stuff.
Okay, let's talk about the appeals process a little bit. And I think there's probably a couple other discussions here, Rick, the one about the service.
I'm not done. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's that also. And, remember one thing also. What we're looking at is just a decline in sales. This is saying nothing about profit, which in the end is, what every business in town, that's the final metric of whether you are successful or not. I mean, you can be a multi-million-dollar business and make no money and, and you're gone. So we're not getting to a larger piece, but we can't really. This is the easiest way for us to get, some relief to the business community. That's why we do it this way. There are little businesses that make a ton of money. There are big businesses that don't make much money at all and are, digging into their pocketbooks right now. So always keep that in mind too. Go ahead, Rick.
Well, let's tackle appeal first, because the process is just an appeal to me. It goes to me, right? When it's a dispute, and then I make a recommendation, and that's where it stops. So I think that I'm kind of charged with understanding what the intent of the council is in these discussions of who we're trying to target and who we're not trying to target, and then make those determinations. So that's how it's been handled to date. And typically every time we do a process, there's a couple of things that end up surfacing to me because somebody is, wanting it to be viewed differently or looked at differently or something like that. And we've just handled them accordingly. So, and to my knowledge, nobody has gone kicking and screaming to you guys yet, but it might happen. So we'll see. But yeah, Tim, I'm not aware of us having to have any other more formal process that would require something to go to the council on this, right? So.
No, I'm not aware of any need for that. You could certainly establish that kind of procedure, but I don't know that we have to.
I wouldn't recommend that on this if I was.
No.
I think let's try to keep handling it the way we've been doing it. Keep it simple.
No, I think it's gone well the way we've been doing it. I think the staff does a great job in handling these oddities, understanding what the general philosophy of the council is to help as many as possible, but not help those that, honestly, some of the bigger corporations or the places in town that have bigger corporations backing them, we can't really be. I'd rather give that money to independents. That may sound harsh, but truly,
those corporations probably make more money than the town. So
yeah. Oh well, yes.
I think the challenge for us is going to be this group of people that we refer to that are in our service industry and our service sector and our professional office sector, because they do not remit sales tax. And so we have no way of knowing, short of some kind of financial review, what their percentage of loss is. And there's so many different factors that could come into play, right, on their profit margin or whatever how you would look at that for them. But it depends on, I guess, what this is really your philosophical view of what are you trying to, you know, if it's your business, it's important, right? But is it something you're trying to save for the community too? I mean, if we have 10 law offices in town, you know, I don't know how those law offices are faring in 2020 compared to how they were doing in 2019. I'm sure they're hurting a little bit, but they're still, the majority of them, to my knowledge, is still working. I mean, you did hear from one attorney during, I think, the first round that was upset because that particular business had suffered, according to them, quite a bit, and they weren't eligible. So you have law offices and professional, you probably have accountants, maybe architects, those types of businesses are still, I would imagine, are licensed to do in there, you know, in our, in the other one, what we call the, what's it called, service? Those are massage parlors, right?
We call them physical therapists.
Landscaping.
We don't have massage parlors here.
We don't?
No, but that would be a happy ending, but I don't know.
Yeah, those types of people are in there. And there's, Brian, I can see, I don't know, what do we have? How many licenses in there? 30, 40 of those types of businesses?
Yep.
Yeah.
What's the total, Brian, do you have a total amount of these sort of outside the scope businesses?
Yeah, we have
Or outside of sales tax, I should say.
about 160, and that's including what Rick's talking about, law offices, there's a lot of real estate in there, all of your physical therapy and all that kind of stuff that is service and does not report to us any of their activity because it's not a taxable activity, so we don't
Right.
We don't
How
regulate.
how would you go about, what metric could you use that they could send you? You know, we're outside of you know, tax season, so yeah, Dick.
How about if we keep the level playing field and just do revenue and plunk them into our, you know, our different percentages down?
Yeah, they would have to report to us, kind of like Eric was just saying, you know, outside obviously the sales tax return realm. That's where we got all this information that we're presenting. So we could look at tax returns for 2019, but of course we don't have that for 2020 and won't for some time. So the problem is some businesses produce monthly financials, some don't. You know, some do their financials once a year, you know, to get their books zipped up with their accountant, and they do it in, you know, for April 15th. And that presents a challenge to us. They can obviously present the numbers to us in a format we can come up with, but as far as verifying it or having something that is vouched for, like a sales tax return, would be the challenge.
We're close to the end of the year. Would it be possible to use 2020 tax return or 2020?
Nobody, I mean, most people don't have that stuff done till April is the problem.
Yeah, for some of them maybe, Aaron, but a lot of them, you know, probably do their financials for April 15th so that they can do their taxes.
Yeah.
So year end isn't a big priority, you know, it's not a monthly thing for those guys like a sales tax return is. So that's
Hey, Brian.
The point is, if they want $8,000, 2 months rent, then couldn't they do it? I mean, it's like the reason they do their taxes is, you know, to get whatever is in order. So it seems like
it's work they would have to do anyway.
And the information is there. Yeah, it's not like that. Yeah, it would just be doing it sooner.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to involve a lot. It's going to be much more staff intensive, right? If we have to go through 50 applications and do financial reviews on them. So what you need to also decide is who you don't want to target. Like we've already said, we're taking grocery and marijuana retail off. Do you want construction eligible? Do you want real estate? Any real estate eligible? Do you want, you know, do you want law offices eligible? Do you want? I mean, you know, landscape companies are working.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and real estate had a record year. I mean, I feel like that's a really easy one to look at the numbers and say that the need.
If you lost money in real estate, you probably aren't doing something right.
Right.
2020.
What about like nonprofits that don't pay sales tax? And
Well,
what about-
nonprofits, I mean, nonprofits they're taken care of in our grant process. I can't imagine we would be, that's a huge door to open.
Yeah.
I think we handle them in a totally different way.
You know what I worry about, and I'll defer to the financial people, but I think if we cast a huge net, a much wider net, then I think we run the risk of not helping anyone enough. So to make a difference in keeping them solvent. So I worry about that. I worry about if we include, you know, just so many businesses will have less money to give to the really vulnerable businesses. But there again, if you guys think we get the dough, you know, I'll entertain broadening the categories, but I want to make sure that we actually can keep the most amount of businesses standing.
I mean, the other option is just to do a set. There's 160 businesses like this. You can make them all eligible for $1,000 grant from the town.
Yeah.
And make it very simple.
Yeah.
Otherwise, this could be super complicated. The other option would be you go ahead and you file for it. You can get the money. And then, you know, in May, you have to submit your tax return. And if you were lying, you have to pay the money back. But that might be another, you know, Brian's going to be kicking in doors trying to get money back is probably pretty tough too. I mean, I know that there are massage therapists or physical therapists in town. Rick's got me, and I'm getting texts about that, by the way. There are physical therapists in town that have been, you know, they've been hit and they've gotten nothing from us. They're integral parts of the community. Same with law offices, same with accountants. They're an integral part of the community. And, you know, we don't want any of these people to leave because once things are back up, you know, we can't backfill all these businesses if they go out of business. So how do we keep them without overwhelming the staff so badly, you know, but getting to the people that do need it? Rick's probably right. There are probably landscapers that have done very well and they're off right now anyway during the worst part of this thing. So
I think
like
when we
that
did
idea of having what you said, Eric. I like that idea of having an application process and, you know, maybe a flat grand, something like that. If that's easy, if that's doable.
When we did the first round, I believe there was a provision in the application process that the business couldn't function remotely, or it wouldn't be possible to function.
Yeah, but the requirement in the first round was that the business had to be closed by public health order. And so that's where we argued some of these other businesses, you know, we had interior design studios that weren't required to close. You know, and those were, like we heard from those people that, yeah, I'm not required to close, but there's no work right now. And so that was what separated most of those businesses in the service weren't required to be closed by any public health order in that first round. So
I mean, you do it on the honor system too.
Well, yeah, Brian, some of those aren't going to apply. I mean, one of those, I mean, it's like Jeffrey's got a license in one of those. So
no.
Dude,
he's
I'm an essential worker.
He's for sure a massage therapist.
Hey, Eric.
Yeah.
I apologize. I lost my internet and dropped off, so this may have already been said, but you know, we could do it on the honor system, reporting their sales with the right. They give us the right to audit their tax return after the fact and bill them if they exaggerated. You
Yeah.
know, if it was inaccurate, we can bill them after, you know, we won't necessarily do it, but have them sign off saying that they would give us the right to audit their tax return once it's done and bill them if there was a difference.
Does that work for you, Brian? Something like that?
Sure, we can do that.
I mean, yeah, that's sort of where we were.
So are we talking about the $1,000 cap or the $1,000?
No, I think they would fall in the same categories
Okay.
based on percent of loss.
They could do a very simple sheet showing, you know, their 2019 and then their 2020 and, you know, their business revenue. And then they would have to sign something that says the town has the opportunity, if we feel that there's some malfeasance, to go in and audit or do random audit, you know, knowing you're not going to audit everybody. But if we hear that somebody got money and then, you know, they're in the bar talking about how they got sweet money from the town and they're still doing great, you know, we'll hear that.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with that. I mean, I think we really need to, you know, this is a community effort. This is a community effort to keep people partially whole so that we can get back to some semblance of normalcy. Anybody that's going to abuse that system that lives in this community should be ashamed of themselves. And I'm okay with really making that a part of this, is that, you know, this is the honor system. We're expecting that you are not cheating when you tell us that your law office is down 50%. We will take your word at that. But if we hear something else, we have the opportunity to audit. So I think that's an easier way to do it.
Yeah, I agree.
I think we can use the tax return information, federal tax return information, to get to like a gross sales number. We'll have to make it clear that we're not talking about your net income.
Correct.
Like you were talking about before, Eric.
Yeah.
Different people will have different, I get to use the term. I think we'll be try to look at EBITDA, right? Earnings before income tax, depreciation, amortization.
EBITDA.
So
Will
we'll
we
make
use
that
the
clear.
same,
That's what I'm sorry?
will we use the same months, March through November?
That
You know what? To make it easier, we should just do January to November, or just the year.
gonna have to be.
Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
don't forget too, I think the way we're doing it, because this is so different, you know, a lot of those businesses know what this month is going to be already anyway. So you could just call it the year. You know, I mean, it's already the 22nd. By the time we get this going, the year's over. So
29th. We're not going to put this out until January.
yeah,
Monday.
so there's the whole year for you. So anybody that, you know, they could just say, look, in 2019, this was my tax return. In 2020, this is what I'm telling you that we did. That is this, you know, this like number. This is what I'm down. Right, Brian?
Yeah, and we can be very specific and say, you know, on your form 1040 or whichever form, you know, what number is in box 11 for 2019? What is your best guess for what that number will be? And then we can, any kind of audit process that we would engage in could be pretty focused and say, all right, we're looking at this box right here. What number did you tell us? You're off 10%. Okay. You're off 80%. All right, maybe we have an issue.
Yep.
And it seems to me that everyone's watching their numbers so closely right now that this shouldn't be too burdensome of a process in
No,
order to get the money.
no, I can tell you where I am right now.
Right. I feel like you and Dick tell me like once every 3 days that you've recalculated the numbers. So I would
Yeah,
imagine
it's the
most
morning.
people are in that same.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, Kelly, and those who don't, who want to wait till April 14th normally to do that stuff, well, then you won't be able to, you know what I mean? You should hustle up.
They must not need the money.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's worth it to
Gotta
make
do it,
do
yeah.
now.
Yeah,
Not
Rick.
unreasonable.
Rick?
And for clarification, are they required, is this one that they would still be required to have some sort of brick and mortar type office as opposed to a home resident office? So Eric, Jeffrey's out.
Yeah, good. That's all we're trying to carve out is Jeffrey.
Make sure.
I'd say yes, Rick, and they have the opportunity to appeal if it's a legitimate situation.
I work out of my truck a lot. Is that doesn't count?
No, you know, there's probably some, I don't know how the daycare thing works in some of these homes, But, you know, if there's an appeal for some of those, I think we should allow Corey or whoever's running the program or Julia to allow some appeal. So, you know, if you are running out of your home and you feel that you do have an interest in the community and this is how much you're doing in the community, I think you should be able to appeal some of these things.
So when are, I got a comment from somebody who's watching, but they couldn't enter the comment into the chat. And they have some strong feelings about not including a tax return because of how long it takes for that to process. Are we including a deadline on this? Or if they get it in like end of January? Or
No, they're not submitting a tax return.
not a tax return, just the application.
They'll submit the number off their tax return for 2019 to give us the base level. They will then submit that number to the best of their ability to calculate for 2020. It will be an estimate. We will expect that estimate may be plus or minus 5%. If that number turns out to be plus or minus, 50%, then we have an issue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, not minus, but plus 50%, then we have an issue. But, that'll be honor system, that part, that 2020, what you expect blocks 11 on your 2020 tax return to be. That's how we'll do it. So otherwise it'll be May before some of these people can get stuff together. I mean, listen, I file extensions until like September for my taxes. So, a lot of people do that because there's a lot of moving pieces for everybody. So,
Thank you.
so it'll be an estimate. It will be at your best guess estimate. And we are counting on you as citizens of the town of Breckenridge to be truthful in your estimation. And Brian can sense truth in people, so truthiness, right?
That's true. And plus, don't forget, we got Heather, who can be very scary, so we'll have her messages.
Yeah, right.
So right now, we're only omitting grocery stores, retail marijuana, and real estate. Anybody in the real estate business. So, if somebody,
brick and mortar.
What?
And anybody that doesn't have a brick and mortar, right?
Yeah, so if somebody's there's a lot of people that are employed as subcontractors, right? There may be a framer, they work on a construction crew. They wouldn't be eligible because they don't, they don't have a brick and mortar type business. They generally work as a subcontractor out there for somebody in the construction field, so.
I noticed last round we had a size cap. I think it was based off number of employees, but is it worth this round doing something like a revenue cap? Because with these dollars, we want to help just the most vulnerable businesses, and we want these dollars to help the business survive. If a business is so big, is a $3,000 check going to help them? Should we have a size cap?
Well, you have businesses that would be eligible. That are $5 million a year businesses, but they've lost, 42% of their business. And you have, then you have businesses that are, that make a fraction of that have lost that. So I guess you have to determine, somebody that's done 5 million in sales also has a lot of employees and a lot of expense out there that, that they're trying to cover. And Carol, we looked at that and, does it hurt less for them? I don't know. And do we want to get down into the weeds that much on it?
Yeah. That also sort of gets to the Q&A question that just came up from Rob about the nexus between, is it income loss because of COVID or is it income loss because you're terrible at your job? We're just not going to parse that right now. We're going to assume, the assumption is it's lost due to COVID. And I don't see any other way for us to do that right now. I mean, you could get in the terrible weeds and you'll still be writing checks in October of next year because you're diving so deeply into this stuff. And we got to really look at this more surface level and make it, pretty cut and dried for the staff so we can get some of this money out right away.
And I agree, Eric. I think the deeper we get in the weeds, the more unintended consequences we create.
Yeah, I think it was a great question, but I also really liked Rick's response about some of those bigger people have a lot of employees, and honestly, we want to help them. I mean, we want to help them with rent so that they stay open, so that they can keep paying those employees. I feel like we could land on it.
All right, so how's everybody
Let me
feeling
check
about where
in.
we're
Eric,
going?
Eric, let me do a quick check in here. Do
Yeah.
I have, where's all my,
Got all your notes?
Corey's probably lit. Is Corey anywhere? Is she, anything we need to get from the council? Anybody that's listening in staff wise that makes where the rubber hits the road and makes this stuff happen?
I just had a question. Are we envisioning one application process and the award is for January and February?
Yeah, I think so.
Do I?
No, I was more thinking we
Yeah.
would just not have to have this discussion again. You do it as a January application and then a February application.
That's what I was thinking too, because I want to make sure, number one, the business is still open and running and that they're using that money to pay
Correct.
February.
Okay, all right.
So,
But the measurement period would be the same. It'll still be the
Yes.
March through this March through November for the sales tax people, and then for the service ones where we have to use the tax information, that would just be the year.
Correct.
2019 versus 2020.
Yep.
all right. So Corey asked what are the final award amounts, and I'm gonna read off what I have here. So I think everybody agreed that we're gonna end up on the we'll do $3,000 for the, I can't find that one sheet. What was it? 20 to 29%?
Yeah.
4,000 for 30 to 39 and $5,000 for 40% decrease and above. We will use the March through November metrics for our businesses to determine, with the exception of those businesses that do not collect sales tax. We will use 2019 compared to 2020 revenue only, gross sales. On that, we will omit those three businesses: real estate, marijuana, and grocery stores that I described above. We'll use the other must have a brick and mortar location, cannot be part of that ownership model that I described in my memo. That has several businesses under one ownership, and that ownership is located outside of Summit Park counties. You could have multiple businesses owned by the same ownership group, and each business can apply, right? As long as they all are in Breck and the ownership company is based in Breck. Are you good with this? Still can't be a seasonal business? That was one of our earlier requirements.
Yeah. Rick, did you say can or can't?
Cannot.
Maybe
I don't think we have too many that fit into that model, but so.
And I just had a quick question. The grant award schedule will be the same for the service businesses. In other words, the 345 for the 20, 30, 40%, same amounts. Okay.
Same.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Rick, I think with seasonal, if they're a winter seasonal and it really fits, then they could appeal. I don't think we'll have many, so I think they can fall in that category.
So our plan will be to fine tune the application, what we can get done this week. And then our goal is to try to have this rolled out and online for people to start applying Monday, January 4th.
Great.
All right.
Rick, the only thing you might have missed was the affidavit. I didn't hear you say just agreeing to seek any appropriate help or whatever, however we had that wording, we talked about for.
That'll be a checkbox, Dick, as opposed to requiring any signed affidavit that they're pursuing PPP.
Yeah.
That's off the table. So,
Yep.
hey, Tim, do you think we need any sort of a formal motion to adopt this? It will, so we will formally, you'll be doing an appropriation at some point to your budget. All right, because you're adding additional expenditures, but that'll be, what we do is we track these things as we go, and then you'll do one, as you all recall, remember, you'll do a big appropriation to the 2020 budget, which includes all of these things right now. These dollars, are these gonna land in 21, Brian? Yeah, because we're not gonna put them out till January. So these will now roll into a 2021 appropriation. So you'll formally vote on that budget appropriation at the time we do it. But as far as the specifics of this particular grant program, Tim, do you think we need it?
Yeah, I think it would be prudent to have some sort of a motion to approve the program as you've outlined it.
Okay. And probably, let's see, anybody that would benefit right now, I'm looking, and probably just Eric and Dick would be eligible to receive dollars from this, so they would probably want to recuse
They need to
themselves.
stand down.
Yeah. Anybody, am I missing anybody else? Would you be eligible that I'm not aware of to apply for any of these funds?
No, we made sure Jeffrey's not, so.
No, miss.
Yeah, Biff Inc. will just have to work by my own devices.
We'll list him specifically as an exception.
So if somebody could make a motion to approve this 2021 business rent mortgage relief grant program as outlined by myself, and we could get a vote on that, that would be great. Don't everybody go at once. Kelly, go.
You want it now? Okay, I move that we approve
wait
it.
an hour if you want.
I move we approve the 2021 rent mortgage relief package as discussed in this meeting and presented by Rick Holman.
Second.
We have a first and a second.
Jeffrey, just see if there's any additional discussion on that. And then we can.
That's right, I'm the mayor. Shoot. Yeah, okay, we have a first and a second. Is there any additional discussion on this item? All right, having said that, there's no additional discussion. I'll give those viewing 30 seconds if they'd like to make a comment before we vote. Does anyone have a watch? Okay.
You counting, Jeffrey?
Yeah. But now
Are we going to have a chance to bring up other issues after this, or is that not this kind of meeting? Okay.
No, we will.
I'll consider that.
I should probably apologize to all the physical therapists out there.
I'll take that under consideration, Kelly, now that I'm the mayor pro tem, but let's get this order of business completed already. Helen, would you like to take a roll call?
Mr. Kuhn,
Yes.
Ms. Owens,
Yeah.
Ms. Sade,
Yes.
Ms. Giello,
Yes.
Mr. Bergeron,
Yes.
and Mr. Carlton and Mayor Mamula recuse themselves.
It's Mayor Pro Tem Bergeron.
Mayor Pro Tem Bergeron.
And I'll hand the mental back to Eric.
Oh, that was great, Jeffrey. Thank you. Okay, other matters, Kelly, what do you want to go with?
Well, I just wanted to discuss some of the use at our trailheads and parks, and I just wanted to make sure that that's something that Public Works and the rec department probably are discussing maybe how to manage that a little bit better, because I know that we've had some complaints and I've certainly seen lots of crazy parking around town. So do we have a plan for that, or a group assigned to?
We do.
Okay.
So right now, Public Works, what we've done to date so far, obviously, I think this past, Christmas weekend hit us really hard. We're certainly not seeing the numbers that we would typically see, because you all remember that the week between Christmas and New Year's is the busiest week in town historically. That's when we're gridlocked on traffic. You don't want to be anywhere near Park Avenue at 2:30 in the afternoon. And, we're not going to see that type of volume, but we're seeing a lot of volume still in town. And so, we're checking. Public Works is looking at signage. We're deploying our variable message board out to that location to alert people to no illegal parking, and to try to also, let people know if they're not familiar with the runway sledding hill, so we can try to distribute the crowds, a little more, although they're both busy right now. And then PD, police department is doing extra patrol over there. They did write some tickets for illegal parking over the weekend, and they'll continue to monitor that. Tickets, it doesn't accomplish a lot, but I think they still got to do it because the people that are complaining are going to be upset if we're not doing tickets on these people that are blocking their driveways, or so tight up against the driveway you can barely access into your residential place. But you're probably ticketing somebody from out of town, and you're not, it's not a local that it gets educated by that. And so, but still, it's something that we have to do. And so, and Carter Park is obviously the worst right now. So,
is there any way we could have a community affairs officer or a public affairs officer just be there in kind of preventive medicine, be there and kind of maybe for an hour every, sporadically?
Well, that's part of, Jeffrey, that is what they're doing, but it's, I can't guarantee that they can be there an hour every day. And it's, they go by there when time allows, and and Jim's listening to this also, so he knows. And we discussed it yesterday. They'll spend extra time there because it's a problem area. And so we try to focus our resources on problems that are impacting the community. And this one is something that is going to probably be there for another week or so, and we'll have to focus on it during that time period and see if we can, try to have some impact on it. I've noticed it's what's called an attractive nuisance, right? Because it's what, people want to go and they want to do. And there's less people skiing, which we knew, which is why we built these other things out there. So
I also,
what do our trailheads look like? Are they overcrowded right now from people hiking, like out at the B&B and those kind of things?
Yeah, but totally manageable, I think. I mean, Sally Barber's always the worst, but that's in the county's purview. There are days when the cars are lined up on the wrong side of the road at Sally, all the way down to that far house. So, but that's Shannon's husband's problem, not ours. So.
Yeah.
But it hasn't, it has not been that bad. What was that, Dennis?
Sally Barber and Carter Park are dead ends.
Yeah.
I mean, people get to the end of it, they've got to turn around, they've got to park somewhere, and that's.
Yeah. I would make the observation, I think there are more vehicles in town, in comparison to the amount of people. I think more people are driving here during this situation than they have in the past, and less are flying, and maybe more people are coming from the nearby states than have in the past. So
undoubtedly that's correct. And people can isolate in their own vehicles and limit their interaction. And we know there's people that said, to heck with it, we're leaving, we're getting away, and we're going.
Yep.
And we don't care if we'll ski or whatever. If we can ski a day, great. If not, we'll find other things to do. And so, yeah.
We have signage at Carter Park directing people to the new sledding hill.
The VMS is going, the variable message sign is going up. probably today. I know they were talking about it yesterday, so they're going to put the variable message. So there's not permanent or other temporary signage out there directing them to that.
Hey, Rick, is there any variable message signage anywhere where we could just talk about the avalanche danger right now in the backcountry? I'm really concerned about that, particularly if this storm, happens.
Yeah.
Because there's such a weak layer out there, and we get some pressure on it. It's gonna be bad.
It's the worst snowpack since 2012. We've had 4 deaths so far this year, and kind of surprisingly, the deaths were pretty savvy old time backcountry skiers. It wasn't the neophytes that are getting in trouble. But no, I totally agree. That would be a warning, or certainly a message that it would behoove us to have out there.
And there is signage that has been added for this year at trailheads that access backcountry, that are common access to backcountry, that do talk about avalanche danger.
Yeah, there are. Yeah.
Whether it's enough or not, I don't know, but it is there. They're very large signs.
Yeah.
Talk about it.
Yeah,
And
it
I
seems
know
like the more
Haley pushed some of that messaging out, and she can continue to push that out a little more on the backcountry. That's a tough one for us to, we have limited variable message abilities, and certainly our permanent VMSs aren't used for that. And so that would be a tough one to put on a VMS type thing. And James did let me know that the one I described is in place right now at Adams and High Street. So alerting people as they're coming in to Carter Park.
Good.
Yeah, have Haley with their timing on the avalanche messaging around storms, just kind of check in with CAIC and, when they're alerting, high Abbey danger, just to really try to push those messages out as much as possible.
I'm assuming that the stores in town are sort of pushing that out with their customers too. Is that accurate, do you think?
Yeah, the backcountry stores are for sure. Yeah,
Okay.
the shops that handle that gear for sure. Mountain Outfitters, I know are. So, and their web pages also focus on that message.
How were things going at the Nordic Center with the bike rental? Are people going out and using the new bikes?
Scott, any input?
Because we could probably sell those things for 10 times what we bought them.
I know, no kidding. I tried to buy one. Yeah.
No, there are no bikes to be had right now anywhere in the country. Jeffrey's been trying to buy one and he can't.
Or borrow one permanently, yeah. And now the people that have those bikes, they lock them now.
I'll rent Jeffrey mine.
Yeah.
Other matters? Anybody?
Dick and I are doing the grant video today because we can't do it in person, so we'll be doing that. And how's any thoughts on the grocery store? Are they complying? I'm sure it's still always a cluster at City Market, but Rick, do we get a sense that they're trying to make it as good as possible or mitigate it as much as they can?
I guess I have a sense that yes, they're trying to do that. I mean, I can't tell you if their monitoring system is accurate without standing out there and counting people.
Yeah. Maybe we can get
know
Dennis.
I know it feels very crowded, but I'm sure 260 people crammed in that store feels very crowded. And and we get complaints from people that are frustrated, and I mean we're all frustrated with City Market, but I think they're complaining to the wrong people. They need to be going to Kroger and Dick Bowder. So
yeah, I don't know.
Has very little influence over that, which we found out over the past 5-6 years. So we got one, we'll be out next week, and then we'll meet. Our next regular meeting will be the 12th, January 12th. I don't think there's probably any reason for another meeting in between right now. I think, I think we've got our marching orders on completing our 5-star certifications. We'll be working on those other businesses, and then obviously trying to get all this grant stuff rolled out is going to be pretty intensive right now for staff. So Shannon, is there anything else we need to? I can't think of anything else in the works right now we need to touch base on or talk about related to COVID type stuff.
All right.
I just like to say, I can't really believe what staff can get done on top of what they do in a normal year, all doing their normal jobs. So I'm sure that they hear the words of appreciation. I wish there was a way that we could really help you all understand how much it means to the community, what the great lengths that you guys are all going to.
Boy, I couldn't echo that enough, Kelly. Well said.
Thank you.
They're setting the bar too high though, because when things go back to normal, we're going to expect so much stuff.
Shush, Eric.
No, I've already heard from them that when things go back to normal, I think some of them want some time off. So
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. They've been doing an amazing job. And Jeffrey, you wanted to talk?
Just, we're not, I'm guessing because the bars aren't open, New Year's Eve will be a little bit less of a concern as far as drunk driving and whatnot. So is that?
Well, it'll certainly be a much different animal than I've seen in my 20 years here, because New Year's Eve is crazy.
Yeah, so
I mean, it's like, if you've never witnessed it, it's Night of the Living Dead, right at 2 a.m. and people are just, I mean, in a trance out there with little to nothing on in sub-zero weather, walking around, wondering why they're going to freeze to death. It's quite this spectacle, but that won't happen. Alcohol off the table at 9 o'clock. So, there'll be very little partying, if any, going on in businesses. And I cannot imagine why a business would try to have an early New Year's Eve party and risk their 5-star certification.
That was my purpose to bring this up. Okay. Good.
So.
Stay home, watch the ball drop and say, come on, 2021.
Oh, man.
And we just got to get through this first half of 2021, and then I think we'll be.
Yeah.
But I would imagine if the police department will probably get at least 1 or 2 loud party calls. So if they respond to a party, that somebody's having their own New Year's Eve party, it's a public health violation.
Yeah.
So, they can deal with that appropriately if that happens. So it's more than just a loud party anymore.
And it'll happen. It will.
It'll happen. Yeah.
It will happen. So hopefully everybody listening knows not to do that.
Yep.
Nothing wrong with a quiet New Year's Eve to get rid of this crappy 2020. That's for sure.
I can't wait.
Yeah. So I want to thank all of you for your dedication this past year too. I was thinking the other day, how many special meetings have we done in the last since March? And it's been a lot, there's been a lot of energy and a lot of dedication on your part too, to come together and meet and discuss these things. I think we worked very well together as a team, which makes it so much easier to work through these types of situations when we can really gel. And so staff appreciates, what you all bring to the table too, and making it our job that much easier if we're not having to referee internal fights among the council. So we appreciate that.
Amen.
Yeah, I think Aaron's been a lot better since this year.
I was just going to say that they let us beat Jeffrey up at will. There's no refereeing that at all.
Yeah.
Off camera.
He's such an easy target, Kelly.
All right. Well, everybody have a wonderful New Year's Eve and see where we go, huh? Thanks,
Yeah.
thanks everybody.
See you next year.
See you next year.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Have a great
Happy New
afternoon.
Year.
And thanks to all the people that have been watching us and tuning in and
Staying
spending their
involved.
time on these Zoom calls. It's been pretty amazing how many people are engaged, and I really do. We as a council appreciate the public engagement.
Hey, Eric, down those lines, I think we all really look forward to getting in-person council meetings again, but do we have the technology ready so that when we are in person where we can push this out on Zoom or whatever, way is effective so that the public can continue to stay engaged online, when we go in person again?
Helen?
Yes. Chris and I are working on that because we consider kind of a hybrid model to be the future of council. And we understand that engagement over Zoom has been really effective. So that is the plan when we go back to in-person, to be able to operate both ways.
That's great.
That's
Thanks.
awesome.
And Helen, will that include like if one of us, I'm not going to sit next to Jeffrey coughing all over the place in July, even if I have my vaccine, but he might still want to attend. So will that be flexible that way as well? Cool.
Certainly, at least through the time of COVID, we used to have a rule that remote meetings for council members were not allowed. But if you remember, we changed that at the start of COVID. And I think we'd want to continue it until there was no more risk of it.
Well, and certainly if you're talking 2 years from now with everything and you still want that ability to remotely attend a meeting, that's, we'd have to take that up.
I think that's
part of the council.
That's a great discussion. That's a great discussion to have. If we get to a point we decide, look, you're allowed to have two opportunities per year to remotely join a meeting. We can have that discussion once we get through this. I think that'd be a great way because, people have vacations and, in the end, this is a part-time job for the council. So it'd be great to have that opportunity at some point.
Yeah.
Be able to get in while you're doing something else. So.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks everyone. Have a happy New Year.
Yeah. Peace out.
No parties, Jeffrey.
No.
Happy New Year, all.
Happy New Year.